Hi all, let's see value type and reference type in C#, and let's see the reason why does the string variable remain unchanged even though it's a reference type. Before seeing value type and reference type, let's recall memory management in C#. Memory management involves allocating and deallocating memory resources during program execution. In .NET, common language runtime is responsible for managing memory. When we declare a variable in .NET application, it allocates some memory in RAM. There are two types of memory allocation for variables which we created in our .NET application. One is stack memory and another one is heap memory. For understanding stack and heap, we have to know what is value type and reference type. Let's see value type first. A value type holds its data directly in memory and stores it in the stack. For example, if I declare a variable a is equal to 5 means the variable a will store in stack along with the data, that is 5. Assigning a value type to another variable creates a copy of data only, but it will not share the same data. For example, here I declared a variable a as 5 and assign that into b. Here what will happen means both variable value stored separately inside the stack memory. It will not share the same data. For example, in next line, if I assigned a is equal to 10 means the value of b remains 5 only. The value of a will not reflect into b. Let's see practically. Here created a simple console application. Inside main function just assigned variable a as 5, then assign that variable a into b, then changed a as 10, then print both variable a and b. Let's execute and check. See, the variable b remains 5. It didn't change because in stack memory both variable a and b stored separately along with value. Now let's create a function and pass this variable a into that and modify this variable inside that function. Let's do. Inside this function just modify the value of a and printing that value. Let's call the function. Here we modified a is equal to 10, then passing that value inside this function, then modify that value as 20, then printing that. Let's execute and check. See, inside the function value of a is 20. Here after function calling the value of a didn't change because a is an integer type, integer is a value type. When you pass a value type variable from one method to another method, the system creates a separate copy of variable in another method. That means here inside this method another copy of a will create and maintain in stack. So the both a maintained in stack separately so that the modified value of a didn't reflect inside this main function. So note, in value type, when you pass a value type variable from one method to another method, the modified value will not reflect even though if the variable name is same. Now let's see reference type. In reference type, memory address of actual data will store in heap memory. That means in reference type, actual values are stored in heap memory and reference of that variable, that means memory address, will store in stack memory. For example, class, array, string, object, delegates, interface, these are all reference type. And here created a class, and this class having only one property, register number, and here created a method, test method. Inside this method created an object for test class, and here after completed execution of this line, this object1 value will store as null inside heap memory, and reference, that means memory address of that value, will store in stack memory. And in next line I just assigned object1 into object2. Here what will happen means the reference, that is the memory address of object1 will copy into object2. Note here memory address only will copy, not the data. So if copy of data means it's a value type, and if memory address means it's a reference type. And note here object1 and object2 share the same reference. So if I change object1 means the value of object2 also modified. Let's see practically. Let's create class. Let's remove this. Let's create an object. Let's add values. Let's create another object. Let's assign object1 into object2. Let's print both values, the value of object1, the value of object2. Let's execute and check. See, both object having same value. Now let's change the value of object 1 by calling function. Let's change this type as class. Our class name object dot. Let's command this. Now let's call the function. Let's pass object 1. Now let's print the values again. Here let's mention after function calling. Let's save. Let's execute and check. See, here after function calling the both object values changed. Because class is a reference type, here we are passing reference, that is memory address of object 1, not value of object 1. So inside the function, if we change the passing object value means it will reflect outside also, so that here both values modified. Let's see a quick review of value type and reference type. Value type uses stack memory. Reference type uses heap memory. Int, character, bool, struct, primitive data types are value types. Class, array, string, object, delegates are reference type. In value type, it creates a copy of value. In reference type, creates a copy of reference. The value type variables and value removed when method exists, but will exist until garbage collector remove it. Value types are faster, but reference type slightly slower than value type. Note, string is a reference type, but we cannot change value of string once we assigned a value. Let's see the reason with example. Let's create a string variable. Let's remove this string. Let's give us name. Let's assign as Peter. Let's print this name. Let's change this as before function calling. Let's remove these lines. Let's pass this name into function. Let's change this as string. Let's reassign the value of name as John. Let's remove this class. Let's execute and check. See, even after function calling, the name didn't change here. Here inside this function call, we modified the name. The modified value didn't reflect here. In our previous example, when we passing class object and modified that object inside function call, it reflected outside of the function also. Both string and class are reference type, but class object modified outside of the function, but string value not modified because string is immutable. Let's see a quick diagram to understand clearly how string works internally and why modified string value not reflected. A string is immutable. That means once we assigned a value, it cannot be changed. When you modify a string, a new object is created in memory and the variables start referring to the new object instead of changing the original one. That means the example which we already saw, here inside main function we created a string variable and assigned as Peter. Note, string is a reference type, so actual values are stored in heap memory and reference of that variable will maintain in stack memory. Now assume value Peter stored in the memory address 1000. So inside stack memory, reference of that variable name is pointed to 1000 now. And here we are calling the function and passing our string variable. After completed execution of this first line, what will happen means the new variable created in the name, and here the copy of the reference will pass. Note, string is a reference type, so copy of the reference only will pass, and that created new variable will also pointed to the same address 1000. So reference of the change value method also pointed to the same address 1000 now. And inside the next line we modified the string variable. So what will happen here means, inside heap memory a new address will create, let's assume as 2000, and store that value John in that new memory address. Now the name variable inside change value method will point to the new address 2000, and the name variable inside the main function is pointed to the memory address 1000, so that the modified value is not reflecting here because both memory address are different. And also if we modify the name variable, again inside change value method or main method, a new reference will create in heap memory and the name variable will also point to that new reference. So whenever we modify a string, a new object is created in memory and the variables start referring to the new object instead of changing the original one. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe to my channel.